So Graham, how would you describe your style of leadership?
So my preferred style, the style that I'd like to achieve, would be definitely democratic, because I want to involve the people. We know through research that people work to a high standard because they want to, not because they're told to. So I think it's important that we engage people and give them an opportunity to be a part of what we're doing. But of course, that doesn't happen naturally, right? As is proven here in Ken Blanchard's situational leadership model. So to be effective as a leader, we need to consider the situation that we're in to define really the style that we should adopt.
Okay, makes sense.
So we start with the kind of directing or the telling. So what's the scenario? What Blanchard was saying is in the early stages of developing a person or a team or an organisation, it's the role of the leader to be much more telling, much more directing. This is how we do stuff around here. This is what I would like you to do, and this is how I would like you to do it. Why do we do that? To achieve an outcome, any given outcome. And of course to standardise practice, to standardise behaviour, etc. So a really, really solid foundation.
So ideal when someone first joins a company or a change in role or task within a role, that would be kind of where you'd start.
100%. Perfect example.
Okay.
But of course, if we're going to tell people all the time, it can create a number of issues. The first issue, of course, is people only ever do stuff when you tell them or how you tell them. You're not going to encourage people to think for themselves. They're not going to feel heavily involved or engaged, and they could become disengaged, even worse. The other thing is, what we don't want to do is limit the potential of what we're doing by the way you're telling somebody. Yeah. So we need to shift our style. That style will now be less telling and a little bit more coaching. What is coaching? As a style, it's kind of encouraging the performer to make decisions, to challenge the status quo. But of course, as the leader, you need to challenge them yourself, as in, how would you do this? Now that you know what you're doing, could you do it quicker? Could we do it better? What if I gave you 2 more people? Could we do 10 times as much? It's starting to ask the questions, to put the onus of the decision making on the performer to get a better outcome. And of course it does great stuff for their confidence, right?
Absolutely.
They're starting to make their own decisions, owning how they do stuff.
I can see that. So then what happens after coaching?
So this is an interesting as an arc here, because what it's defining really is a bit of a tipping point. And the tipping point is the information, or where the detail or the skills and behaviour shift from you as the leader to the performer. So the performer is now outskilling you or outthinking you. So what we're going to encourage people to do now is start to think even more for themselves. I want them to tell me how they think we should do stuff. Okay. I want them to challenge how we've done it historically and how things could be better.
So then what's your role as the manager?
Yeah, so the role as the manager in this one is to demonstrate the trust that you have in people. So I trust this decision. We still have to challenge their thinking to make sure that we're all sure with it. But what my job is to support them with time, with resources, with additional training. Maybe it's a change in policy. Maybe it's in a complete change of the way we think. But it's their idea. I like it. It's my job now to support them to achieve it.
Nice.
This is where we want to end up, right? People talk about autonomy in workers. Of course we want people to work autonomously, because we don't need to tell them what to do and how to do it and when to do it. They're fully motivated, they know exactly what it is that they want to do, and they have the confidence in their skills and ability to do it. However, I want us to think a little bit now more high performance world. This is really interesting, okay? Because in that kind of world, when we're delegating stuff, the performer knows more than you. They've got more skill than you, more knowledge, more expertise. So actually, don't just delegate the task. Delegate the responsibility of defining how they're going to do the task. Delegate the full responsibility of when and what the outcome looks like. One thing we have to remind ourselves of is check yourself on the accountability, because we might delegate tasks, we might even delegate the responsibility of the task, but we seldom delegate the accountability because that sits with the leader.
Okay, I think this area is one that can be a potential challenge, just in terms of managers delegating the task but not necessarily the responsibility.
Sure.
And I think that's when, you know, people can then start to feel a bit micromanaged because they're being given something to do but then feel that they're constantly being checked as to when they're doing it, how they're doing it. So I think that's a really, really great point.
And you're absolutely right. And we see this, of course, within our coaching. Where does the problem lie then? With the leader. Yeah, or the manager or the leader. So as we develop our performers through this cycle, through our own leadership style, remember as an organisation or a business to support the development of the leader. Because the leader's got to let go through all of this process. And there'll be a number of different reasons, maybe historic, maybe in the moment. Don't forget the levels of accountability on leadership and managers of decision making and the potential consequences of getting it wrong. They're not going to be too free to let stuff go. But of course, you're right. If we don't want to micromanage and we ultimately want full autonomy and we want super levels of delegating and engagement, we've got to let go as leaders.
Yeah.
Can I just say one other thing here? I don't want it to be too rigid, and it shouldn't be too rigid. Now, there's a number of points to think about. The responsibility of leadership and management is tough, right, at times. Now, don't see this as one direction for one person or one team. The reality is we will shift backwards and forwards through this as somebody new comes into the team, or we're developing a particular person, or somebody needs supporting a little bit more, etc. The other thing about this is if you've got a team of 4 or 5 people, you might need to be all of these people. As a leader, you might need to demonstrate each and every one of those styles in exactly the same day.
Yeah, and I guess for some individuals, you could be needing to demonstrate different styles depending on, you know, what they're doing within their day. If there's been a change, you know, if a new task or a new responsibility has been added to their role, then potentially you might be back into directing for that element, but in delegating for another one.
Sure. So again, is it okay to tell a senior performer what you want or how to do it? Of course. Think of a safety critical moment. Think of a time critical, an economic critical moment. Accountability, this is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I don't care. Even if you've got a high-end performer, it's still your responsibility as a leader. So it's still okay to tell senior performers in moments. Is it okay to delegate to a new person? Of course it is, but be careful. But if you wanted to engage somebody and fill them full of confidence and feel like they're welcome and on board, delegate them a relatively simple task, one that you know that they can do, and watch them flourish and thrive. But be careful with this one.